welcome to a really terrible and frightening episode of BioLogic Science News. There's an antibiotic substance called colistin, or polymyxin E, which has been called an antibiotic of last resort. It's used to treat infections caused by multi-drug resistant bacteria, like Pseudomonas aeruginosa and Klebsiella pneumoniae. Colistin is a last resort because it can cause kidney damage, so it's kind of one of those Hail Mary medicines that's used when there's no other options. Human doctors don't like it because of the kidney problems, and so veterinarians started using colistin on animals. So what this means is that if you have a bacterial infection, and they're giving you colistin, this means that you're infected with something that's resistant to pretty much every other drug that's used to treat it. So it's pretty terrible news that a bacterial gene called MCR1, which gives a resistance to colistin, has been spread around the world. The gene was first discovered in China, and within 2 years it had been found in Europe and North America. And that rate of spread is terrifying because it's a lot faster than scientists expected. It's a lot faster than the rate of spread was anticipated to be. These findings and other topics were discussed at a recent international conference in Berlin, with participants including scientists, health officials, drug producers, politicians from national governments, and even the UN. Another problem that they discussed was the growing number of deaths from antibiotic-resistant diseases, which currently sits around 700,000 deaths across the world per year. But because of the emergence and expected proliferation of these antibiotic-resistant diseases, the death toll is expected to become 10 million per year by 2050. 10 million. A lot of these drug-resistant bacteria are being created by our totally irresponsible misuse of antibiotics. We have problems with doctors overprescribing antibiotics. We have problems with people not taking their antibiotics properly. We have problems with pharmaceutical companies who aren't taking the initiative in finding new treatments and new options. We have problems with farmers across the world who use antibiotics on their livestock, but are too messy to prevent those antibiotics from leaching into rivers or lakes. All of these problems create conditions where bacteria can develop resistance to drugs and become these so-called superbugs. In earlier episodes of Science News, I've already talked about superbug strains of gonorrhea and malaria, but there's also a strain of supertuberculosis called MDR-TB, multi-drug-resistant tuberculosis, and this kills almost 200,000 people across the world per year. And then you have to throw in other deadly diseases that are becoming multi-drug-resistant, like various strains of strep, staph, and salmonella. These pervasive superbugs could render common procedures like surgery too risky to perform. They could turn routine illnesses into potentially lethal threats. Open wounds could become common vectors for deadly bacteria, and we'd have little to nothing in the way of treating them. Hopefully those people who go to this international conference to speak and discuss ideas, hopefully they'll devise ways to deal with our current situation, where we stand and what we can change going forward. I mean, hopefully they'll think of ways to get us to change our irresponsible behavior so that we can begin using antibiotics in a controlled and responsible way. The alternative is a world of superbugs that causes death by infections at a rate that the world hasn't seen since before the emergence of antibiotics.